This is Recruiters on the Rise, and I'm Colleen Gallagher. Join me for candid conversations with talent leaders as we explore the work that drives them, the lessons they've learned, and how they're helping people find careers they love. The show is sponsored by Lavalier, an interview intelligence platform built by Textio. Welcome to another episode of Recruiters on the Rise. I'm so excited to have my guest with me today. He has spent his career finding engineers and technical leaders who build the things we all use every day. He recruited for companies like AWS and Twitter and now runs his own shop, the Rework Group, where he works with organizations he really believes in. What I love about Brian is that he treats recruiting like a craft. He has a very specific philosophy around making candidates feel seen, and I think you're going to want to steal some of his moves. He also describes himself as a Rush Chairman for life, which we're going to make him explain. Brian Fink, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much, Colleen. I appreciate you having me on. I'm excited about this. And yes, I am the Rush Chairman Emeritus. That is my claim to fame is I went to college for 3.5 years, graduated from the University of Georgia. And I think that I learned everything I needed to know within the walls of Tau Epsilon Phi. So shout out to all those brothers at the new chapter at the University of Georgia.
Awesome. Well, I would love to get, sort of your first take on something around recruiting and what's the one action or one thing that sets the best recruiters apart from the rest?
I think that it's intentionality. And I think it's, I was describing it the other day to a friend of mine as it being a glass jar of trust, right? Is that when you tell a candidate that you're going to do something, it's like putting a marble in a glass jar. And when you tell a hiring manager you're going to do something, it's like putting a marble in a glass jar. But you actually have to do that thing that you tell them you're going to do for you to create trust. If not, you overwhelm the bowl, you shatter the glass, and it can be done very simply in just a matter of seconds, right? So when I'm working with a hiring manager, and I'm working one right now, and the rec was not in a great place when I got a hold of it. I said, we're going to go from red where we are today to yellow on Wednesday and green on Friday. And what that meant is they were going to have candidates in their pipeline by Wednesday, and they were going to be able to make decisions on them by Friday. Here we are, we're recording on a Tuesday. I'm in constant communication with a hiring manager, letting them know what the flow is, what's going on with the different tooling that we're using to select the candidate, what we're doing to engage with a broader spectrum of individuals, how we're asking for referrals. I'm trying to take it by actually putting the marble in the jar. And then by the same token, shout out to Stacy Zapper, is that if you're a fan of hers, great. If you're not, you need to check her out, everybody. Stacy is an OG. She passed down to my generation of recruiting the idea of follow-up Friday. So every Friday, whether I spoke to you on Thursday, I am following up with the candidate that I've spoken with throughout the week. That is what I'm doing in the first 4 hours of my day. It may look like a phone call. It may look like a text message. It may look like an email, but I'm reaching out to them because they need to know where they stand before they go into their next week of doing epic things. And ultimately, I think that if you're acting with intention, and I think that a lot of recruiters that they are going so fast that they can't slow down, like they're doing a lot of business development or they're doing a lot of candidate development. Well, they're just shaking their hands. They're doing a lot of jazz hands, right? Let's stop doing the jazz hands. Let's put our hands in, do the work, and actually act with intentionality. That's actually one of the things that draws me to the conversation that I'm having with you today, Colleen, is that when I think of intentionality, I think of Textio because what a great message that Textio has about creating great outcomes for candidates and hiring managers and organizations in the process. But you put the rubber to the road. Okay, man, like not to get too pitchy, but you actually say, well, this is how we're going to run a structured interview with lavaliers. So it's all about intentionality. That's what separates the good recruiters from the best recruiters.
I love that because sometimes we forget that really simple things like having an intentional block of time on our calendar that we actually respect is such a key to effectiveness and the outcomes that we want to drive. And, like one simple thing I use, it makes me think of it when you talk about this is I often think, and I talk to my team about this too, is like, what's your time pie look like? And, what are you spending the most, how is your time distributed during the week? And when you talk about like having your follow-up Fridays, it really makes me think about, okay, when you think then, maybe you work 40, maybe 50, 60 hours, depends on, whatever, but whatever percentage that is, right? Are you allotting 10 to 20% of your time for the week to follow up to candidates? And I think if you have that like mental model around it, kind of exactly what you're saying is like, it makes you more effective at actually following through on those habits than if you just say, okay, and then you can kind of look back at your time and say, did I actually do my target? My target for the week was that I was going to spend 10 to 20% of my time on candidate follow up. Did I do that?
You phrase it in that direction, and I've never thought about it like that. And for somebody who tries to optimize in 25-minute increments, like I'm a big Pomodoro user. I've got the Pomodoro timer on my Mac. I've got it on my PC. I've got it on my phone. Like, and my God forbid, my poor daughter is probably going to think everything happens like in the span of a sitcom, that we solve all the problems like that, right? Like back in the day, what a different world. Like everything was done in 23 minutes. But I really try to act with intentionality in those interval blocks, but I've never thought about it in terms of committing 10 to 20% of my week to actually following up with a candidate. And it's like you said, like I want to make sure the candidates are seen and heard, and not treated like pieces on a chessboard.
Right.
I mean, you think about it, as a corporate recruiter, we sit in on conversations on Monday morning. They're like an hour and a half long, where you go through a spreadsheet and you say, where are we with rec status? Where are we? And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're gathering all your recruiters to do that with your hiring managers, why aren't you gathering your recruiters to do that with your candidates?
Yeah, it's such a simple tool, but I think I like the marrying of the two where it's like here and like here's how I want to distribute my time and here's the block on my calendar that I'm going to do it and just, things come up, but if you know to be intentional about setting that time aside, I think it just makes you much more likely to follow through on it. So that's a great tip I love that follow up Fridays.
That's Stacy. That ain't Brian. That's Stacy. I stand on the shoulders of giants. I say that all the time. Is that I stand on the shoulders of people like Tara. I stand on the shoulders of people like Rob McIntosh. I stand on the shoulders of Sally Stepperl, like Steve Levy, Steve Rath. Like all these people have built this, and I'm just coming behind them, and I'm just doing the same work.
There was another thing you had shared with me previously that you like to make sure you include in every screening call. There's a question.
Oh yeah, there's a question.
Yeah. Can you share?
At the end of every conversation, I often say to the candidate, hey, we've talked about a lot of things here today. Is there anything that I missed that you think I should have asked you about that I didn't ask you about? And I really appreciate you highlighting that, Colleen, because we talk about being seen and heard, and how can we cover everything that's in a resume, or how can we cover everything that is in a GitHub repository? I have had countless conversations where people say, you didn't ask me about my internship that I did at Meta. That was really important to me. It changed the trajectory of my career. It made me learn, and they just open up, and I'm like, okay. And I think that I could probably ask a similar question at the front of the conversation. There's this hesitation that I haven't in the back of my head that I haven't earned the right. I think also a really powerful question that is asked or should be asked is at the front of the conversation, is that we say to the candidate silly things like, what can you tell me about the company that I'm interviewing for? Right. I said it's silly because we should instead be asking the candidate, hey, can you give me a 2-minute snapshot about where you've been and about where you're going? Because as we have those recruiting conversations, we're trying to frame a conversation around past performance, predicting future behavior, right? Or past behaviors predicting future performance, whatever that people at EDI have cooked up. It's just blown up with me today.
I like your framing of that other question. You just said like, what's the 2-minute overview of like where you've been and where you want to go? My favorite question to ask people when I interview them, like if I'm doing my first like hiring screen as a hiring manager, or even if I'm part of an interview loop, is um, just like the sort of the open-ended, like, tell me about yourself. What do you want to highlight from your experience? And it often it varies so significantly between somebody who speaks for like 30 seconds and people who speak for like 10 minutes, to the point where it's like, what was the original question that I was answering? Right. But I like I need to gate it around a time frame. I think that would be better.
So here's the thing is that I like the way that you ask that second part of the question, where you're really giving that person the on ramp to accentuate what's important to them about their career, rather than saying, like, tell me about yourself, right? Because we know that's a question that allows bias to creep into the conversation. Yes, I believe that we're all biased, that we're going to hear something that's going to turn us on or turn us off about the candidate. Let us not get turned on or turned off in the first 30 seconds of a conversation.
Yeah, I hosted a webinar last week and we were talking about like data and, I'm sure this is nothing new to most people, right? But you form your impression of someone in 30 seconds and you make a decision within the first 4 minutes. And so, um, I do think it's, you have to be intentional about what you ask and how you ask it to try and make sure that you're sort of opening your own aperture in your head of interpreting what people are saying. So I love that. Um, in terms of, there's a school of thought out there that we should just get rid of inbound recruiting altogether. So I'm changing topics a little bit here. Like, what's your take on this?
I got a lot of feelings. I got a lot of emotion and I have a lot of data, right? So they're all coming together in this wonderful confluence is that inbound recruiting has a problem right now for the technology community, and that's fake candidates or bad actors. And when I say fake candidates, I can point to how many fake candidates I've caught, but I can also point to the structured data that Gartner's put out that 1 in 4 candidates will be a fake candidate by 2028, right? That makes my life really hard. That makes my life really angsty. And one of the reasons that I like to get on video with candidates is to not only prepare them for the fact that they're going to have to video interview in the next segment, but it's to see how they ask questions or how they respond to questions, right? One of the things that I've noticed is that candidates will say to me, "Hey, Brian, could you repeat that question?" And I'm like, the question was, how is your day today? Right? I don't need to repeat how is your day today, unless there's an LLM that's in your ear from your desktop or from your mobile phone that's repeating that. So I think fraud is a huge problem with inbound recruiting. I don't think that inbound recruiting, I think it has a place. I think it has a place in creating talent communities. I am a trained sourcer, right? Like I talked about Shelley Stucker at the beginning of this conversation. I should talk about Shannon Pritchett. These are two forces that taught me to go out and hunt, all right, to find candidates that are passive candidates. But 10 out of every 100 or 1 out of every 10 active candidates is going to be a great fit for what you're looking for. They're going to be just as strong as the candidate that you sourced, actively sourced from a passive standpoint, right? Um, so I've got mixed emotions. I've got a lot of different data. There's there are pieces that don't fit in neatly.
How is the fraud showing up that you're seeing? Like you use the example of sort of like a delay in terms of answering really easy questions, but are there other ways that you're detecting it or that you're experiencing it?
Yeah, so there are other ways that I'm detecting it or experiencing it. For instance, I would point to that people are using like, I'm just going to pick on John Smith. I have nothing against the John Smiths of the world, but they've got a name that is severely anglicized. And then they have a LinkedIn profile that you go to and it only has 45 connection, right?
Yeah, no pic.
No picture. Well, no, even in some instances, there are pictures, right? And they've got great company pedigree, but they've only got 45 connections, or they don't have a GitHub profile, right? Like I expect a developer that's worth their salt, an engineer that's worth their salt, to have contributed to publicly available code bases. So the first thing I do, Colleen, is that I get a candidate who, and yes, I know if you work at Meta and you can't contribute Meta's code base to the public repositories and what have you, which is interesting juxtaposition against the hacker ethos, but we can debate that later. Yeah, so I go and I try to find as many breadcrumbs as I can to make sure that that candidate is who they are. And then also, I'm forgetting the tool that Robert Pritchard at Tier 4 Group, great organization that he put on my plate, that I use like to check email addresses and to figure out when it was created and how many social accounts it's affiliated with. But yeah, like the spammers are out there. You can go on GitHub and actually download to your IDE a resume distribution email blaster that'll match and blast your email out. It's actually like if you put resume automator into Google and put GitHub in there,
Yeah.
it'll be like one of the first ones that pops up, and you can send out 700 applications in less than 15 minutes.
I think one of the ways, and I know us at Textio, we're thinking about this too, and trying to solve that is, and people are talking about this a lot in the market, is doing more AI screening where you have sort of the first interaction with the company be with an AI screener. And I would say, part of the reason that I think they're becoming more and more popular is because people are so inundated with inbound right now. And I almost think of it less as a first recruiter screen and more of as a way to help us understand who might have the right qualifications. In addition to the fact that, like, not only do we have fraud, we also have candidates using AI to generate a resume. So they look, I guess my view
You
is
look picture perfect.
they're becoming commoditized. Like, I don't know how much value we can get out of resumes anymore. And so I think, part of the reason I wanted to ask you about this, I know you wrote, I think in one of your recent newsletters about like, how do we not lose a relationship building aspect of interacting with candidates? And it genuinely got me thinking, because we are looking at building our own AI screener. Like, to me, it's almost like the AI screeners become a replacement for a resume review.
That's the way I look at them. And that gets me excited, right? Like, Colleen, if I were going to build one, and I'm not building one, I will find you the people who build it.
Yeah.
Is that I would use the screener as a way to, my favorite word in technology is Kubernetes, not because it sounds funny, but because people put on their resume K8, or they put EKS or AKS or GKE, and it all means the same thing. If you've got a novice recruiter and I say, yeah, I have GKE experience, do they necessarily know when they're screening the resume or having the conversation that means that you have Google Kubernetes experience, right? Well, how closely is that aligned to Azure or EKS on Amazon, right?
Yeah.
So you've got the screener that can ask those deeper questions around a person's experience. And then you've got the opportunity to query it, use the answers using natural language search. So when you use that natural language search and say, does this person have Kubernetes experience? It comes back and it says, yeah, they used Kubernetes to deploy 100,000 pods using GKE.
Yeah.
That's one. Two, about the candidate experience. You talk about the homogenization of resumes, right? When I worked for Apple, when I worked for Twitter, when I worked for AWS, when I worked at McAfee, we were all consumer facing businesses. You don't want to piss off your consumer. You really don't.
Yeah.
Matt Charney, love Matty Matt. We have an argument about this article that was written back in 2016 that talks about how by delivering a better candidate experience at Virgin Mobile, they were able to raise their bottom line for their prepaid phone plans, right? Somebody else should come out with that study. But I think that when you treat human beings like human beings and you give everybody that voice, maybe if it's synthetic, maybe if it's an automated interviewer, you put up your CSAT score, you raise your NPS score. I sent off the fireworks using my thumbs. Is For those of you who are not watching, Brian just used Apple gestures and sent up a bunch of fireworks. Um,
Love it.
Apparently I didn't have that turned off, but the strong reality of it is that when I think of the work that I did at McAfee Security, we strive to make the world a safer place. And I would not want somebody to have a bad candidate experience that they would say, you know what? I don't need my McAfee Security. They didn't treat me well. I'm going to open myself up to getting all these viruses and having my computer taken over. Or alternatively, on the other end of the spectrum, Apple, everybody knows I'm an Apple fanboy, love all my Apple devices, right? John Turnus, if you're listening, I love Apple. The reality of it is that I would not want anyone to have a bad experience with an Apple interview. I would want them to be just as joyful as when they open up an iPhone.
So do you think that that's impossible with an AI screener, or how would you think about doing it in a way that, because I genuinely think problem we're trying to solve isn't to make it less personal. It's literally to actually give people more chance at getting through the funnel, because right now it's so hard to identify who truly has the things you're looking for.
So when you talk about it that way, I think about it, and I think that it acts as an agent of good for inbound traffic.
Yeah.
Candidates that have been headhunted, I don't know that I would put them through an AI screener. I really don't, like passive candidates. But then you get into a lot of EOC compliance issues, right? Like, was each candidate that was brought into the process treated equally and fairly? So you have to deploy that for each of those candidates, right? Or that's my understanding of how that would work. Give Keith Soderling, my boy. Come on the show with Colleen. You're not a recruiter, but you're on the rise, baby.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's a good point. But it's something that we can look into as well. And to be, Texio has always been very conscientious about this kind of stuff and wanting to stay compliant. And we support.
When you lead the field in this, like you guys lead the field in New York, right? Like you were the people who said, this is the way things need to be in an unbiased way, in an unbiased fashion, before being unbiased was PC or cool or.
Yeah. So I think, we're, like I said, we're working on developing something around that. And to me, it's less about replacing a recruiter screen, and it's more just about using it as a way to get people assessed in a way that we used to use resumes just aren't a thing that you can rely on anymore. And so I think it's just more.
I mean, look, I have, as we sit here having this interview, I have 3 Macs on my desk, right? I have one Mac that I just run for IDE purposes. And I go to the code on GitHub and see if it will compile and do the thing that you said it was going to do, right? If it does, okay, now I've got to make sure you're not a fake candidate. You can do the work. You can build this epic shit. Oh, sorry. Okay.
You're allowed. I don't think any children are going to watch about a recruiting podcast, but
recruiting podcast. Who knows? I mean, I have the Star Wars helmet in the background, so there might be. All right.
I guess what kind of shifting gears a little, because you're so deep in recruiting in the technical space, I'm curious how you're seeing the evolution of what people are interested in skill-wise, responsibility-wise. Like, how has that changed in the last 12 months, the last 6 months, in terms of like what people are hiring for? Where there's sort of this broad narrative that engineering roles are going away and the data doesn't really support that. And so I'm just curious if that's just inflated, or are there nuances to what people are looking for that are feeling different than they were 24 months ago?
Okay. So 24 months ago, 48 months ago, 96 months ago, we all, as organizations that are eager for talent, is that we all wanted to raise the bar. We all want to go, I want this person who knows these 4 languages, and if they know this, I want this. Okay. So 12 months ago, it was, hey, I want somebody who knows Java, AWS, and I also want them to know AWS's automation cloud or AWS's AI features, or I want them to have experience with N8N. Okay? Now, 6 months later, it is my expectation is that you're going to find me a coder who knows how to write native code, and who also knows how to use a tool like Cursor or Replit or Claude Code or Codex, and they have to be able to do that, and they're going to be able to QA their technology. They're going to know how to DevOps their technology. They're going to know how to triage their problems. These so 96 months ago, we were like, we want this plus one. 48 months ago, we were like, we want this plus one. 24 plus one. 12 plus one. Today, everybody says to me, I want a candidate who knows how to do agentic. That's a big lift, Colleen.
Yeah.
It's a big lift, right? Because, there's some organizations that they say N8N. Or there's some organizations that say, we want you to make sure that they've experimented with OpenClaw. There are a lot of moving pieces. But what I would say is that the overall theme that has not changed is we want software developers and we want them to be curious and we want them to index on applying that curiosity.
Yeah, I feel like that's sort of broadly speaking, you're hearing a lot more around curiosity, like learning agility and those types of things, which is why, it's so important to have that candidate relationship and have that good connection and have the structure around the interview process. 'Cause I think that's the only way you end up actually getting signal on some of those things. But I mean, are you finding that the talent that you're seeing, it's sort of the same people and they're evolving? Or
Well, that's a good call out. There have been there has been that evolution. But there are also some people who, Colleen, it's a 50-50. It's super dichotomous, is that you have those people who are doing things like with OpenClaw or N8N or Zapier and marrying it to Claude Code and what have you. Then you also have the people who are tiptoeing into the pool, and they're doing very small QA tasks in Claude. And that's not going to get them where they need to be tomorrow. So there are those, and I honestly think there's a technology divide, is that you have organizations like that don't want their employees to put anything into an LLM. And we can understand that, right? Like there was the developer that loaded, Samsung's version of Android into an LLM, and that created a bunch of problems. These are the same organizations that they don't have an AI governance strategy about what can go in an LLM, or if you're going to have a ChatGPT enterprise license or Claude enterprise license, so that you have that instance or Copilot even restricted and giving that guidance. And so you have organizations that are saying, here are all the tools, go play with them in the sandbox, build epic things. And then you have other organizations that are handicapping their employees or really chaining and shackling them to the past.
Yeah. And guess what? They're doing it anyway, right?
Yeah, they're doing it. I mean, I just told you I have 3 bots that are my hands.
Get it behind your own infrastructure, because that's just a cost of doing business now, is like everyone has to have a license.
Everybody has to have a license. You talk about that 10% of my time doing follow-up Fridays, for that kind of engagement, is that we both know that I spend a lot of time writing. Now I'm spending probably last week, I know I say N8N, I know I spent 7 hours in N8N building different automation sequences, to maybe power my engagement on a social network.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I'm a recruiter. I'm not a developer. So like if you're a developer and you're not playing this game, we're not having this conversation because I'm not putting you with one of my clients. That shit ain't gonna fly.
Well, shifting gears a little, you're a recruiter for, or what was it called? The Rush Chairman for Life.
Rush Chairman Emeritus. Yes, ma'am.
Right.
Yes,
But
ma'am.
tell me more about that. I think when we had talked about this originally, my question to you was like, what advice would you have for people coming out of school? And you told me the story. So I would love you to share it with our audience around why you call yourself your Rush Chairman Emeritus.
Okay, so here's the thing: is like you're gonna learn a lot of different things in school. I've got political science degrees. Like it's all well and good. I know how to use SPSS. Like I know use SAS. Great, fantastic. But the reality of it is that being Rush Chairman at the University of Georgia for Top Sun 5 for the new chapter put me in unpredictable situations. Okay. It would be like, well, we've got, I'll give you a really good example is that we had one kid that is a good friend of mine now, who had certain dietary restrictions. Right. And then we had everybody else could eat pizza and what have you. Is that how do you make that accommodation and make it where it doesn't single this person out, but brings them into the event and brings them closer to everybody else, right? Like, how do you deal with those challenges? Or how do you convince a rap super band, Run DMC, to play your fraternity house when, oh, wait a minute, what did we talk about? Did we not talk about this?
No.
Okay. Okay. So real quick, for those of you who are watching, I just got this from one of my fraternity brothers because I am a huge, Run DMC fan because they did play Top Sun 5, but I'm also a huge Beastie Boys fan. And this is the book Together Forever. It's about their story about how they came up in the rap game. And so one of the things that's really unusual about my fraternity is that we've had the opportunity to grow. My pledge class was 18. The next pledge class that I was Rush Chairman for, we grew to 24. And then eventually we had a pledge class of 32 while I was Rush Chairman, right? So I'm constantly trying to encourage people to go Greek still today. I think it's important. I know that people say you're buying your friends, but I think that you're opening yourself to other opportunities. It's like how I write about people going into small rooms that you don't belong in and saying what's on your mind and building that. Um, you know, uh, Social Chair decided we were going to get Run DMC to play our fraternity
Oh,
house. And it was a great rush tool. And we had 4 days before they were supposed to play, the university sent the fire department in to say our house could only fit 200 people. And there were, 150 people, and there were like 200 other people coming to this thing. So like it taught me to be resourceful and to go out and find a club that would be in downtown Athens that would host this, right? Like, so as Rush Chairman, it really taught me how to build bridges with people, how to create full and lively engagement, how to listen to people about what was important to them. Yeah, like not every kid that wanted to join TAP, right? Like it requires you being smart enough to say to them, I know that you really want to be here, but these guys here, they're not your friends. You should go be with your friends. Be with your friends, right? Um, yeah, lost some great kids and became rivals, if you will, because I made that decision. But at the same token, not every person you interview for your company, no matter how badly they want to work for Apple, John Turvis, um, is, uh, is that no matter how badly that they want to work for your company, it isn't always a great fit.
yeah.
Right? So you've got to be able to make those decisions as a Rush Chairman, but you also have to figure out what is important. Now I'm giving the thumbs up. Is that what is important? Do they want to come to great parties? Great. We've got that. We can make that happen. But what are you going to have to invest to have a great party? Well, you're going to have to invest in going to study hall and study hours because we have the number one GPA on campus. Flip side, we've got the number one GPA on campus. You want to go pre-med, you should come here. We got plenty of pre-med guys, right? And we can help level you up. So that's what I mean by being the Rush Chair Emeritus, because when I'm recruiting for a great organization, or maybe they're not great yet. Maybe they're going from good to great, in the words of Jim Collins, right? Maybe we've got to say, how do we change the game and make sure that we're bringing people in that are foundational pillars that we can build success on in incremental fashion, right? Not trying to boil the ocean all at one time. So, yeah. So I'm Rush Chairman. Damn glad to meet you.
Yeah. I mean, I love that story because I feel like most recruiters I talk to came came into recruiting from a very different path. Um, Either, I think somebody I was talking to recently, she was an engineer and was frustrated with the talent she was seeing, and her boss was like, "Well, then go fix it," And she didn't. And she moved into recruiting. Someone else I talked to was a social worker. So I feel like you're a little bit of a unicorn, of somebody who sort of found their path very early.
Do it's really funny, like funny, haha, is that my first job out of college, when I was selling computer training, for New Horizons Computer Learning Center, my number one biggest superstar client was Ronstadt Staffing.
Oh, mhm.
I was like, "What, you found people jobs?" And they were like, "Yeah." I was like, "Okay, I did people computer training. You should come and we should work on something like this." And we did. And staffing and recruiting were always in my DNA. I just didn't know it until I hit the jet stream, and I was like, I've been doing this. Like, I can do this. I can have the conversation. I can listen. And that's important. As long as we're talking about listening, remember, you got two ears and one mouth. And I know I've done a lot of talking today, but you need twice as much listening to your candidates as you do talking at them.
Yeah. So important, for sure. Um, I guess transitioning a little bit more to what you like to do, when you're not focused on recruiting. Tell us about your latest endeavor with fostering.
Oh, yes. So for those of you who have been my candidates, and for those of you who've been my clients, and for those who've been somewhere in between, like Colleen, um, Allie and I, that's my wife. Actually, Allie, this is all Allie, right? Like I said, I all I did was say yes. I didn't realize what the responsibility was going to be. Shout out to my wife and to a neonatal puppy rescue called Bosley's Place here in Atlanta, Georgia. So we had the responsibility of accepting, um, of fostering I'm sorry, 3 5-week-old puppies, just after they had been weaned. They were part of a litter of 9. The 9 were named for Catherine O'Hara's characters that she played on, whether it was Myra, whether it was Delia Deet. We still have Deets. Deets is with us, so he may speak up every now and then.
Yeah.
It's been such a great passion. Our guy Cam, who makes his appearance on LinkedIn every now and then. He's my teacup pitty. He is predominantly pit bull and Chihuahua. I call him my teacup pit, and we got him from, or my teacup pitty. We got him from Bosley's, and we started a relationship with them, whether it's bottle feeding puppies, whether it's cleaning up pens. Now it's having them come here and be part of our lives. And if you're looking for a great guy, or maybe you're looking for a great gal, right? Then I got a guy right here. Like, I got one left. His name is Dietz. He looks like a boxer. He's 23 different breeds. I say he's the designer version of Jordan, right? This is, it's been great. It's been super rewarding. I don't know that Cam is really thrilled about it.
Yeah.
Watching these puppies go after Cam, and Cam's like, ah. I'm like, don't worry. I didn't know what I was doing when I was a dad either. I'm like, yeah, so.
Oh, that's so fun. Do you have interest in deets? Like, are you going to be a foster?
So here, am I going to be a foster fail?
Yeah.
We're not allowed to fail on this go around. Dietz, like I said, Dietz is like he's 23 different breeds. He looks like he's a boxer. Boxers are super intelligent. My sister Laura, she had a boxer, loved him, loved Tucker. He was great. He reminds me a lot of Tucker. There are a lot of feelings with me and Dietz, and like, yeah. So He's a good dude. I wish that he's not he's not so interested in being on a leash, which makes the runs kind of difficult, like running, not without, it makes running a little difficult with him. I've tried that and he kind of wants to go every which way on the leash. Yeah, but like, yeah, he's a dude. He's a good dude. If you're looking for a good dude, I got him.
Yeah. I have a pit boxer mix, and he's a single dog. We're a single dog household. He's not accepting of other four-legged friends. So it's helped us to not be a foster fail or take in other dogs at any point in our lives. So that's good. But before we jump, you have talked a lot about the people who you learned from coming up, and you know, sounds like you had a really they had a big impact on how you operate. And I'm curious, are there other folks that you would recommend, sort of newer recruiters or people who are earlier in their career? Like, do you have any advice from them, from you, or folks they should look to for inspiration and follow?
Okay, so somebody who is new, who has impressed me, and I think of him as a reverse mentor, is Martell Howard. Martell Howard is going to be taking the stage at ERE here in Atlanta in a few short weeks. I'm really excited and impressed by what he is going to say. Okay. So that is somebody new that I think that you need to look to. Somebody who's kind of in the middle, a wise sage would be Erin Matthew, who I text with Erin all the time. She'll say, I got a problem. And I'm like, I got to fix, or I've got a problem and she's got to fix, or talent intelligence. And she's really leading the charge in that area. And I mentioned Steve Levy, Colleen, the first time I was on stage, super, I mean, it was, I had done like local events, but like, this is the first time that like I went to Texas and I did an event and I was the second speaker in the morning and I was going to show people how to hack LinkedIn. I did the presentation and everything was great and people were kind of in awe. And then all of a sudden my mic runner is Steve Levy, who I've never met in person, but I've followed his blogs. I've followed his videos. I've seen him at SourceCon and he is my mic runner. Okay. He's going to ask me questions. And I'm like, oh, okay. The first question is from Matt Charney. Okay. Do you want to talk about being baptized by fire? Okay. Isn't by fire. And if anybody knows Steve Levy, Steve isn't satisfied with your first answer. He presses you.
Okay.
Man, he makes me a great recruiter every day.
Good. That's a good tool. Well, where can folks find you to connect with?
You can find me on LinkedIn.com. I'm Brian Fink on LinkedIn. I'm the Brian Fink on Twitter, Instagram, Substack, and Threads.
And you have a newsletter that you publish. Tell us a little bit about what that is.
Okay, so I've got two newsletters that I publish. I publish one on LinkedIn. It's called The Talent Architects, where I talk about all the things that are going on in TA and kind of my spice, if you will, on what I think is good, bad, and ugly. And I'm not afraid to call it out. I'm also not afraid to get into it with you in the comments. So bring it on.
Yeah.
I just put up my fist for those of you who are listening and not watching. And then I have Forward Motion, is that I take the name from Bugsy Siegel's character, or I'm sorry, the character that oh man, I just lost my mind about who the actor was who played Bugsy Siegel alongside Annette Bening, would be his wife.
Picture his face, but I don't know the name. I can't think of the name.
Yeah, so Bugsy Siegel used to mutter, "Forward motion solves all." And when he would mutter that, and so like that stuck with me as a kid. And I'm just trying to propel the discipline of being an entrepreneur, the discipline of being a great recruiter, and the discipline of being a great dad, that forward motion will solve all.
It's great. And I love reading it. It's great. It's a great newsletter. So,
thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. I really loved, you have such deep knowledge and experience in this space, and you can tell you have a real true passion for it, and it really comes out in how you talk. And I think there are a lot of things people listening can learn from this conversation. I'm really appreciative that you joined us today.
Colleen, thanks for making space for me. Thanks for making sure that I was seen and heard. And I just look forward to all the work that you do to make sure that not only recruiters are seen and heard, but the candidates are seen and heard. So thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you. And thanks to everyone who's listening. If you learned something today or laughed, please tell somebody about the podcast. Thank you again to Brian for joining us. This has been another exciting episode of Recruiters on the Rise. We'll see you all next time. And that wraps up another episode. Thank you for joining. For show notes and other episodes, visit us at recruitersontherise.com. Recruiters on the Rise is sponsored by Lavalier, an interview intelligence platform. Lavalier goes beyond basic note takers to improve your ability to assess candidates with AI-powered interview questions, summaries, and transcription. With Lavalier, you can finally hire with speed and confidence.